The crowd roared, a frenzy of cruel delight. 3 Apache girls dangled upside down from rusted iron beams, wrists bound so tight the skin broke. Blood trickled steadily into the dry earth beneath them. A rotten piece of fruit exploded across one girl's cheek, drawing a howl of laughter from the onlookers. But not from the eldest. Her name was Sonia. Her gaze, black as ash, burned with defiance. She didn't scream. She didn't plead. She just stared, steady, silent, at the sea of faces hungry to see her shattered. The auctioneer raised his hand. 3 wild witches broken and bent. $5 for the whole set, cheers erupted. Coins clattered. A man spat near the stage. The youngest girl whimpered, her mouth cracked and dry. But Sonia, Sia to those who knew her, remained wordless, the cord slicing deeper into her wrists. Dust shimmered around her like firelight in a furnace. Then a voice split the chaos. Calm, deep, unshakable. Stop. I'll buy her. Everything froze. Heads turned in unison. A tall figure stood at the edge of the stage, his face shaded beneath a weather-worn hat. Inside his coat, tucked in a secret pocket, lay a scrap of faded cloth embroidered with the image of a sun. He'd carried it for years without ever knowing why. His coat was torn, his eyes shadowed. His name was Jed Collins, 55, a man built from grit, dust, and memories best left buried. He tossed 9 silver coins onto the wood, sharp, ringing like pistol shots. For all 3, he said. The auctioneer paused. You sure you can pay that toll, old man? Jed's hand hovered near his revolver. Already did. Someone in the crowd clenched his fists, ready to lunge. But Jed's fingers floated over the weapon like smoke over fire, and that alone was enough to keep the man rooted in place. The town of Red Hollow knew the name Jed Collins, a man who walked away from gunfights others didn't finish. For a heartbeat, time stalled. No one dared move. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Then a voice drifted from above the platform, hoarse but clear. It was Sonia. Her head hung low, blood streaking her forearms, but her words rang out. You paid for me. Then take it off. Jed's brows furrowed. Take what off? Her eyes pinned his, the ropes. The pity, the looks. Take them all off. A murmur rippled through the mob. Nervous laughter. A few whispered prayers. The auctioneer smirked. Go ahead, Cowboy. You bought him. Cut her down yourself, Jed stepped forward. His boot struck the dust with finality. Drawing his blade, he sliced the first rope. The beam groaned. Sonia plummeted, crashing to her knees. She gasped, her lungs drinking in air like it was water. The other girls followed, crumbling to the ground beside her. Jed shrugged his coat from his shoulders and wrapped it around Sonia. You're free now. She looked up, her face pale beneath a mask of dirt and blood. Free, she echoed softly. Freedom ain't something you buy. Their eyes met. And in that instant, the world around them dissolved. Something in her stare, untamed, alive, hit him harder than any slug ever had. The crowd shifted back, uncertain. Something about the moment felt off-sacred, inevitable. Jed turned, leading the 3 women through the dust. The town stood hushed behind them. He hadn't meant to stop in Red Hollow. But when his eyes caught the scar on Sonia's wrist, shaped like a sun, his blood ran to ice. That mark. It tightened his chest like a fist. Like the fire from 5 years ago had never left. Only waited, buried beneath his skin, aching for oxygen. For a second, he could smell the smoke again. He'd seen that symbol before, 5 years ago, in the flames, in the screams. In the moment he had chosen mercy over death. Now it was back. But was it salvation or the first step into judgment? The desert swallowed the last echoes of the town behind them. Jed rode at a slow, steady pace, his horse stirring up clouds of pale dust that clung to the air like ghosts. Behind him, the 3 women trudged barefoot and silent, wrapped in the sweltering heat and the raw weight of what they'd just survived. Before we start, drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Beautiful souls? Eventually, Jed reined in his horse and turned slightly. Climb on, he said. None of them moved. The youngest simply gazed at the endless horizon, as if staring hard enough might reveal her home beyond the haze. Tala clung to her sister's hand, her wide eyes darting over the desert, hoping the wind might carry back the voices of those they lost. Jed exhaled, leaned down and offered his hand again, gentler this time. Come on, it's a long way still. They didn't thank him. They didn't need to. He hadn't expected it anyway. By the time the sun dipped beneath the line of earth, they arrived at his land, a modest ranch on the edge of nowhere. He dismounted, stretched out his back with a grunt and said, "It ain't much, but it's safe." The women stood still, taking in the barren surroundings. The eldest took a step forward. Her body moved stiffly, pain showing in every motion. She reached out, tested the wooden fence beneath her fingers, then turned her gaze to Jed. "Safe," she echoed. The word felt foreign in her mouth, like a language half-remembered. Jed gave them water, bread, a blanket each. The youngest drank too quickly and choked, coughing between gulps. The middle sister, quiet and keen-eyed, nodded once in thanks. She stayed watchful, her eyes flicking to the revolver strapped to Jed's hip. She reached out, lightly touched the weapon, then looked into his eyes with a clear message. "I'm not ready to trust you yet. Before we begin, let's connect. Tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from, my amazing people?" Sia didn't eat. She sat beside the table, unmoving, her eyes fixed on the raw marks circling her wrist like phantom chains. Jed took the chair across from her. "You can rest here," he said. "When you're ready, you can leave. Go wherever the road takes you." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You think you bought us a direction?" He almost chuckled. There was no malice in her voice, only a quiet dare, as if testing the weight of his words. Something about it settled into him that night. Later, while he repaired the roof, she brought him a tin of water. Their hands touched barely, but neither pulled away. In that fleeting moment, something unspoken began to stir, somewhere. A lone coyote howled in the distance. At last her voice came again. "Why did you do it?" Jed looked up from his task. "Do what?" "Stop," she said simply. "Men like you don't stop for girls like us." He thought about lying, saying he wasn't sure, but that wouldn't be honest. He had known from the second he saw the symbol branded into her skin. The sun-shaped scar, the same one etched into his memory like a brand. So he answered quietly, "Because someone with that mark once pulled me from the fire. Maybe it's time I returned the favor." Sia studied him carefully, her eyes deep, shadowed, impossible to read. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, "The desert never forgets what it's owed. It comes for its debts." Jed didn't understand her fully, but the chill that ran down his spine told him she wasn't wrong. The fire in the hearth crackled low. Outside, the wind picked up, bringing the scent of distant rain and old earth. Darkness settled close around the ranch, thick and still. Jed leaned back in his chair, watching her face in the flickering light. For the first time in many years, he didn't feel alone, but beneath that quiet, something heavy stirred, like the hush before thunder. Because out there, far beyond the reach of the ranch, under the fading glow of a dying sun, someone else had watched them leave Red Hollow, and that someone was already on their trail. Night blanketed the ranch in silence. The fire in the yard had burned down to glowing embers. Jed sat alone on the porch, a cup of cold coffee resting in his hand, though he hadn't touched it in a while. His thoughts wandered far from the ranch, far from safety. Inside the house, the three women lay curled up together on the floor, seeking comfort and closeness. Sia's breathing was slow, steady, but shallow. One hand clutched the scar on her wrist, the old sun-shaped mark. Jed watched her through the half-open door, wondering what weight that symbol truly carried. Was it a vow, a curse, or something worse? The horse came so quietly he didn't hear it until it was nearly at the fence. A shadow shifted at the edge of the yard. The dog growled, a low warning rumble. Jed rose without a word, lifting his rifle. Past the barn, a faint glimmer, light catching on metal, maybe, but gone before he could place it. By morning, the desert sand bore proof, fresh tracks, boot prints, hoof marks. Too many. Whoever was following them was close, and they weren't traveling alone. Jed saddled his horse, his jaw tight. From the barn, Saya appeared, her hair tangled, her face still smudged with yesterday's dust. "You saw them," she said. No doubt in her voice, Jed gave a short nod. Riders, maybe bounty hunters, maybe worse. She stepped to the fence, her fingers trailing across the worn wood. "They won't stop," she said calmly. "We're carrying something they want." Jed narrowed his eyes. "What is it?" She turned to him then, her gaze vast and storm-dark. "Children, 9 of them. Taken from our village." Her voice was steady, but beneath it, sorrow churned. "We were tracking their path when they caught us." Jed's face hardened. Children? She nodded. Sold like animals. We searched. But the ones hunting us found us first. A long silence stretched between them. Wind stirred the dust at their feet. Jed rubbed his jaw. If there's even a chance they're still alive, we'll find them. Saya gave a faint, weary smile. You speak like the land has mercy. He shrugged. It doesn't, but I'm not known for giving up. That evening, the smell of roasting corn and brewing coffee drifted from the kitchen, blending with wood smoke. For a fleeting moment, the ranch felt like a home. A quiet peace settled in, brief, brittle. But just as the sun began to slip below the horizon, Jed noticed something in one of the fence posts, a glint of metal. He leaned closer, a bullet, lodged deep in the wood, still warm. He turned toward the ridge. Nothing stirred, just the wind whispering through brush and the crimson glow of dusk spreading across the sky. Saya, Jed called out. She came swiftly, eyes sharp and searching. He held out the bullet. Her face paled. They're near, she murmured. Jed's voice dropped to a hush. Then we ride at first light. As the final threads of daylight faded, he glanced her way again. Something in her gaze made it clear. This was only the start. Because the past doesn't always stay buried. Sometimes it rides through the dust and knocks on your door, demanding what it's owed. So let me ask you, do you believe debts die with time? Go ahead, sip your tea, lean back a little, and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you're still riding with us, maybe tap that little subscribe button so you won't miss what's coming. Because the next sunrise, it won't come quietly. Dawn crawled in slow and heavy. The sky was painted blood red, the kind of red that doesn't promise peace. It warns. Jed checked every round, every strap, loading saddlebags with the care of a man who'd lived through too many ambushes. Sonia knelt beside the youngest, lacing her boots with quiet precision. Her movements calm, but her eyes said otherwise. No one talked. The silence carried weight. The kind of quiet that only shows up when danger is nearby. By sunrise, they were already on the trail. The land sprawled out in every direction, endless and wide. Gold dust spiraled behind their horses like ghosts trying to catch up. For a breath, it looked peaceful. But Jed's gut told a different story. Out here, peace is just a breath between storms. By midday, they paused at a shallow creek. The horses drank while Na refilled the canteens. Jed adjusted a loose saddle strap. Sinea crouched by the water's edge, her reflection rippling in the current. Scarred, unyielding. You really believe we'll find them? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jed didn't look up. If they're out there, we'll bring them home. You speak like the desert listens, he glanced over. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it even answers. Before she could reply, the crack of a rifle rang out from the ridge. The sound tore through the canyon like a storm breaking. Jed dropped behind a boulder. One of the horses screamed and reared. Na was quick, already returning fire. Sharp, clean, practiced. Jed spotted 3 figures above. Bounty men. Same ones from Red Hollow. The fight was brutal and fast. Jed fired first. One shot, dead center. The rider tumbled like a sack of bones. Na spotted another barrel rising behind Jed. She didn't hesitate, pulled the trigger. Dropped him cold. Tala lunged for a panicked horse, yanking the reins with strength that surprised even Jed. The last rider tried to flee, blood spilling onto the sand. He disappeared over the ridge, fading into silence. Jed's chest heaved with breath. The dust settled slowly. Sinea approached. Her voice was calm. You kill without blinking. Jed met her eyes. You don't last long out here by second-guessing. She nodded once. No? But every bullet leaves behind a ghost? The words stuck in his chest like splinters. That night they camped beneath a blanket of stars. The fire flickered low, casting long shadows across their faces. The air carried the scent of smoke, rain and gunpowder. Na and Tala curled up beside each other, already drifting to sleep. Sinea sat across the fire from Jed, half her face hidden in shadow. You carry ghosts too, she said softly. Jed stared into the flames. We all do. She leaned closer, her voice barely audible. Maybe it's time you told me which ones are still chasing you. Before we start this journey together. Tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from, lovely hearts? Jed said nothing. He couldn't. The firelight danced in his eyes, revealing something she hadn't seen before. a weight too old to name. Because 5 years ago, Jed Collins wasn't riding in like a savior. He was part of the blaze that destroyed her people. And before this night surrendered to mourning, she was going to learn the truth. The hours passed, long and still. The night held its breath. The fire between them crackled gently. A soft rhythm in the silence. Sia's eyes never strayed from Jed's face. "Tell me," she said quietly, "what did you do that made the desert remember your name?" Jed exhaled slowly. His voice came rough and low. "5 years back, men like me rode into your valley, said it was a raider's den. It wasn't. It was your people." His gaze dropped to the earth. "When the fire broke out, I tried to stop it, but not hard enough. I survived because someone dragged me out. A woman with your mark. She gave me water. She gave me back my life." Sinia's voice trembled. "That woman was my mother." Jed shut his eyes. "I know." Sia nodded slowly, her voice like wind through dry grass. "She once told me the man she saved would carry the burden of our people. Maybe this is that moment." Jed looked her in the eye. "Then I carry it with you." At dawn, they rode again. The desert opened before them, wide and endless, bathed in gold. Behind them, smoke from the past curled into the sky, rising like a fading spirit, mourning what was lost. Days later, they found the children in a slaver's camp, tucked near the canyon's edge. Sia froze the moment her eyes caught them. Among the frightened faces, a small boy stood, his eyes the same as her mother's. Her hands trembled. Her entire world narrowed to that child's face, one she thought she'd never see again. Then the fighting began. It was brutal. Dust exploded in all directions. Screams and shouts tangled in the air. Gunfire split the silence. Tents tore apart in the chaos. Jed dropped one slaver with a clean shot. Another lunged from behind, blade flashing, cutting Jed's sleeve before he turned and fired point blank. When it was done, the screams fell quiet. The smoke drifted. The children were free. Jed checked every body himself, boots sinking into the blood-damp sand. None of them would rise again. Sia cradled the smallest child in her arms. Jed stood beside her, bloodied but standing. She looked at him. "You've paid your debt," she said. He gave her a tired smile. "No. I just started building something better." Seasons shifted. After the rains, the desert bloomed in bursts of wild color. The house they built rose strong against the wind, rough-hewn but steady, a home for the broken, the lost, for those who still dared to believe tomorrow might be kinder. At night, when the wind howled across the open land, Sia would rest her head against Jed's, shoulder by the fire. They didn't speak much, they didn't need. To people in town started calling her Mrs. Collins. Neither of them bothered to correct it because what they had built was more than shelter. Was a life, the House of Dawn. They named it, a place where souls came to mend, one sunrise at a time. One morning, Sonia handed him a steaming cup of coffee, her eyes softer than he'd ever seen. "We've begun," she said. Jed nodded, feeling something inside finally settle. The same sun that once scorched him now warmed his bones. Sia often joined him in the quiet, her laughter easy, her eyes at peace. And when he looked at her, he understood something deeper than words. Redemption isn't something you say. It's something you build. One day, one act at a time. So maybe that's the lesson here. When the world burns you down, will you rise and build again? When guilt chains your heart, will you find the strength to forgive yourself? And if someone once offered you mercy, will you pass it forward? If this story stirred something in you, maybe tap that like button, help this tale find its way to another soul out there. And before you go, grab a warm cup, step outside, look at the sky, and tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Just before the light fades, Sonia turned to him and smiled. "We've come a long way, old man." Jed grinned, eyes squinting into the horizon. "Still miles to go." "Mrs. Collins," she laughed, and the desert for once felt gentle. "Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from, my wonderful family?"